Well, welcome to this edition of the Suitcase Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Bob Bowman, and I'm sitting here in the studio with Roberto Vasquez. Roberto hails from Fontana, California, and is a builder musician, and you build under the Alacran?
It's Alacran.
Alacran name. And you have a special place in my heart, maybe, Roberto, because if you notice on my logo for the podcast, there's a guitar. I consider it probably my favorite guitar. Not probably, it is. I take it everywhere. I even put it in the logo. But you made the guitar I call Luna, that sits next to me at all times, and I take it wherever I go.
That's very gratifying to hear that. It means a lot to me.
Oh, well, so many people that I've shown this guitar to are amazed, and they ask me a ton of questions, by the way. You know, they don't understand the cigar box addiction sometimes, but but
I know what you mean.
But they're like, well, how did he come up with this? I'm like, I don't know. He's an artist, obviously, but you've got everything from paint can lids to sink drains to frets and hinges, and it's just a fantastic sound. It has a great tinny sound to it.
Oh yeah, it's got a kind of nice banjo quality to it when you play it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So in a little bit, if you're okay with that, I'd like to have you play something on it, just to hear, they can hear what it sounds like.
Okay.
But we'll get there in a minute.
Sure.
At any rate, so I wanted to point that out before we get started.
Yeah.
So thanks for indulging me.
Sure, no problem.
So I got a couple of questions for you, Roberto. I mean, and I know you live out in Fontana, and I think you won the award for furthest travel to this particular venue.
Well, it's worth every penny that gets to get here.
Yeah. Well, how about you share with our listener or those who are watching the YouTube channel how you got into cigar box guitars?
Okay, so it's kind of really by accident. I'd say about 9 years ago, my wife and I went out Saturday morning, for some coffee, and we're out there relaxing, having our coffee and some pastry. And when we were done, we were leaving the coffee shop, and outside the parking lot, there was a arts crafts festival going on. People selling, candles and soaps or whatever that they make. And I could see a little down the ways there was looked like from what I could see, it looked like guitars. And I've been playing guitar since I was a kid, so naturally that kind of drew my attention. So as we start walking closer to it, and these things become more clear to me, I said, God, these things are looking a little different. And as I get there, I say, hey, these things got a box shape to them, and I realized, oh, these are cigar boxes and they're guitars. And then there was this toilet bowl guitar. It's just it's just crazy. So I started talking to the guy. He spent probably about half an hour discussing how he made it and played them, and had a good time. And so we leave, and as we're walking away, I kind of turned to my wife. I think I can make one of these things. I didn't really know what it took. So I started scouring the internet. There's so much information out there, trying to figure out, okay, what is it? What do I need? Right. What are the pieces? And well, eventually I gathered what I assumed was everything I needed, and I put one together, and played it. It worked. I enjoyed it. I said, well, let me make another one. So I got two. Well, next thing you know, there's 9 of these sitting in our bedroom, and my wife's looking.
Oh, you got to keep them in the bedroom.
Well, okay, I guess that's where I ran into trouble. So my wife said, well, you just can't keep building these things. You're taking up a lot of room in our bedroom. And I said, well, she says, well, why don't you sell these things? I go, sell them? It never even occurred to me, to sell these things, So I thought, okay, well, so eventually I start selling them, and people buy them, and, and I really build each one, as if it's for me, and I'm going to keep it forever. So I'm very meticulous as to how I build it. And, it's hard because by the time you do list it for sale, it's almost like selling away one of your kids, and it's kind of hard, but it is, but it kind of just feeds my addiction and my hobby here. So it's a self-funding hobby there, and it's a little extra money there. But yeah, it gets to be an addiction because all of a sudden, anytime you're anywhere, any object looks like it could potentially be a cigar box object, and all of a sudden, I'm annoying my wife. Said, "Oh, come on." Yeah, and maybe I've gotten a little better from that, but it's still, I can't help thinking that anything can potentially be a cigar box, part.
Part. I think what fascinates me is there's two threads that ring true no matter who I talk to, wherever I'm at talking to them. And those are, it's an addiction, even though we're not, otherwise addicted to anything. We discover, oh, I can make another one of these, and I can improve that. And so it does become an addiction. Pretty soon you've made 100+ guitars, and you're selling them, obviously. And the other thing that rings true is we look at life and everything in it differently because Russ Wellington comes to mind.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, and I'm a member of the St. Louis Cigar Box Guitar Club with him, but he was out on a job one day, and this is just a prime example, and we all have our own examples of this, but he was on a job one day on a dirt road out in the country and talking to his protege that is going to take over for him, I think. And he looks down and he sees an old rusted steel pull tab style can lid.
Mm-hmm.
And he picks it up and he says, "Oh, you know what this is?" to his protege. and the guy says, "Yeah, it's a rusty old can lid." And he says, "No, this is a sound hole for a cigar box guitar." Yeah. And now it's on a museum build in Gadsden, Alabama, as a sound hole. And it's awesome looking, So I think those two things I've heard time and again, and it does ring true. We do look at things differently.
Oh yeah, I mean, you end up going to thrift shops because you find odd, unique things. And,
right.
You can't find cans with pull tabs anymore because they don't have pull tabs anymore. Everything's all these little popping things.
Tabs, so
it's not the same. But oh yeah, you're definitely always looking for that find that's gonna make your guitar.
I found a metal magnetic handlebar mustache in a shop. I'm like, you know what? That's going to be a great string mount on a guitar.
Yeah.
The handlebar mustache is made out of metal.
Yeah. No, I mean, you look for all kinds of parts. I like making resonators, and I do make them out of pink can lids. But I think it's probably the strangest thing I've found so far was this thing called a canning rack. I have no idea how you use a canning rack in real life, but I do know that if you put it on top of a guitar, it looks like a fantastic resonator cover.
Oh, you just gave me some note-taking responsibilities. A canning rack. Never even heard of one.
Yeah, but I have no idea how you use it. All I know that's what they call it, and it looks great on a guitar.
Well, I will be looking for those when I go thrift shop looking. Well, okay, so you play too. You said you've been playing the guitar, and when you were at this, this swap meet or whatever it was, that you saw these guitars for the first time. Yeah. What did you play? What kind of guitar? What style of guitar?
Well, I was growing up, playing a 6-string guitar. And at this booth, they're all three strings, and I kind of noodled around a little bit with it. And the funny thing about it is that when I finally got around to building one myself, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is really, the string configuration obviously is different from what I'm used to. And other than putting my finger across the whole fret to,
bar
it's
the
all
chord.
I don't know where all the notes are. So, but, it's such because it's an open G, open tuning. If you noodle around with it, you're going to come up with some really nice sounds. And, sometimes I guess people will look and say, wow, it's only got 3 strings. How complicated can you get? But, in the hands of anyone, this thing can play, you can play classical music out as if you wanted to. There's this guy, I think he's out of, I don't know if he's Russian or Ukrainian, but he goes by the name of Captain Nemo. So if you get a chance to go to YouTube and look him up, I mean, that guy plays some really beautiful stuff on a 3-string guitar, and it really kind of expands your imagination as to what's really possible when you come to this. But even if you don't get that complicated, just being able to have a nice rhythm going on a barcode, I mean, that's still very fun and enjoyable, and you're able to play just about anything.
Well, I think it's true, and for everybody except for me,
Yeah.
I noodle around, but I haven't learned to play, and I wasn't playing stringed instruments. I was a trumpet player.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated just watching people play.
Mm-hmm.
And so, who are some of your musical influences?
Well,
or what kind of music do you like listening to?
Okay, well, obviously I love blues, right?
Yeah.
So I love the the classic artists like Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and those guys, and even going back a little earlier with Charlie Christian and not Charlie Parker. Yeah. But also I guess when you talk about Stevie Ray Vaughan, though, that's, to me, he was the ultimate. So for me, and you get some of the newer guys like Joe Bonamassa, who obviously is great. But if we talk about cigar box guitar, Justin Johnson.
Oh yeah.
I guess everyone, at least in our community, is very well aware of him.
And I blame him for my addiction.
Yeah, and you see what he does. God, that's really amazing. So. Anytime that you can have people today, playing like that and really promoting it, it's just fantastic. I went to the NAMM show this past January, and over at the Lace booth, they had some couple of cigar box guitars, and they also had some of those flat pickups that they use for that, and there was this young lady. I don't remember. I hate this now. I got it written down somewhere, but she was there kind of at their booth, and she's playing a cigar box guitar, but she's playing Iron Maiden, The Trooper. I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. 3 strings, but there she was, rocking out. And I also ran into Steve Arvey, who was also, pretty big in the CBG community as well. And it's out there, and there are people who are trying to promote it, and I think it's the CBG community. It's such a encompassing community. For the most part, if you go to any of the all the Facebook pages that are out there, for the most part, people there are really just really together as a community. They're supporting each other with encouragement.
Yeah. That is awesome, and I couldn't agree more. I don't think I've met anyone to date in the 7 years I've been involved in cigar box guitars who wouldn't drop almost anything to help you by answering questions for you that you have, as long as they're, as most of them are, but sincere questions about how to do something. I don't care what it is, intonation, or as simple as where to mount your tuning pegs. But I couldn't agree more. So, all right. So you definitely like the blues. You've played the guitar for most of your life, and now you're making and selling 3-string and maybe 4-string instruments, and enjoying that. You like resonators, but how much time do you spend building?
I think that's a question that we all get asked.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us ever have an answer for it, because
we have to ask. Though.
We do it in stages, right?
Right.
We spend an hour here, twice there, and we never really sit down and log and say, okay, it took me 18 hours to make this, because you'll spend an hour here, and then you might glue something, so you'll wait for that glue to cure, and I can tell that I started today, and I started in March 4th, and I finished it sometime in April 16th. How much time during that span? I have no idea.
No idea, right? Yeah, no, that's fair. Especially, I love working with tongue oil, and it's a 12-hour cure time between coats, and steel wool between it. So some people use true oil. I like tongue oil.
That's what I've been using lately, only because it does dry faster.
Yeah, I've got some.
Yeah. I think you put 7 layers of that, and buff it a little bit. It looks really nice.
Yeah. And this one that you made for me looks extremely nice. I, as a woodworker, before I ever got into this, I was just used to working with tung oil, so
Yeah.
it's habit.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, do you have anything on your bench right now?
Yeah, actually, I do. Actually, there's one guitar I have with me that just barely finished. Or say, yeah, I just finished the other day in time to bring it here to this festival here.
You want to show it to us, or
Yeah, sure.
I can make sure this doesn't fall. So it's fun to see what styles each of us have.
Yeah. So this kind of I don't want to say basic mod, but normally I make through neck guitars. So you'll have this, the neck sticking out here at the bottom here. This is a 3-string. Usually I'll put wings on the side, so it's got a different shape. I wanted to go more of a basic look for this here. But this is I think 25 and a half inch scale. It's got a 0 fret on it. It's got magnetic pickup with volume and tone control, and then over here the strings are grounded to this tailpiece here.
Nice. So you got a pickup on top.
Yeah. So I get these from MGB Guitars. They great, fantastic supplier. I love their pickups. Right now, I guess I'm up to, I've sold 215 guitars.
Wow.
And I guess for the last few years, I've been, only been buying from MGB, their flat pickups. And every time I get a response from my customers, they just love the way they sound.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
It's a great product.
Well, it looks amazing. I love it. Well, I appreciate that because, I think every builder is the same. We have things that we like to build, styles that we like to build, but they're as varied as the boxes. And we can look at a build and go, oh, Roberto built that one. I'm certain of it. Just as sure as you can say, oh, Carl Lau built that one.
Yeah. I mean, this thing's kind of become one of my, I guess, a trademark for me because I really don't see people doing quite like this.
No, I love it. So that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that one with us. Well, with that said, I wonder if you'd be able to play something. For me, it's cool that I have this from you. It was a work of art that I viewed as the gift it was. We did this as an exchange. You presented this one to me. Your name was drawn by someone else, but my name was drawn for you to build for. I built for Keith Crumley, who's now passed away. Yeah. And so the three of us in my mind have a connection. I was petrified to build one for him because, like you, he was a known builder.
Yeah, I mean, when we got to meet him at the St. Louis
National Blues
I've already had known of Keith because I've seen his videos, him and with Justin Johnson, and it was I guess a gift of a lifetime for me to be able to sit down and talk, shop with him for the time that I had there. I didn't tell him, but I was fanboying all over the guy. I just couldn't believe that he's right there in front of me.
Yeah, exactly. It's intimidating.
Yeah. But he was just such a nice guy. I mean, anytime you post anything, he was kind of always the first one to have some encouraging words. So
yeah, he was a
great guy.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more there for sure. So if you're willing, would you like to show us what it sounds like in the hands of the builder?
A little bit of a show.
Yeah, so let me turn the amp on for you.
Yeah, so kind of like I said, the great thing about this is that it doesn't take much experience for someone to get up and playing with this thing. And, even just something simple, just like a nice little rhythm, it already sounds, like a song. And then but I mean, it's just
Fun.
yeah, if you're finger picking too. Actually, you know what? So one day, let's see if this thing's. I do this right here. I should probably practice before it came down here. It's one of those things. I guess the example is that if you just kind of just start playing with it and say, hey, if I put my finger here, I get a certain sound. The chords are. Anyway, I mean, so it's just it's a really easy instrument for anyone to kind of pick up because again, just putting just one finger across. It's that easy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great, and it's always fun to watch people who can play and know what you're doing. So, my question would be: do you always do the strumming without a pick, or?
Okay, so that's a pretty good question. So, for some reason, to me, it just feels more natural to play a cigar box guitar without a pick because you're able to just plug and strum. It just feels better to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because Hubert Sumlin, who used to be Howlin' Wolf's lead guitarist, that guy didn't play with a pick.
Oh.
Yeah. In fact, I think there was a point in time where he was playing with a pick, and Howlin' Wolf told him, no, get rid of that thing. That's not how we do it.
You're right.
And there's a lot of people who don't use picks, like Mark Knopfler or Lindsey Buckingham. So there's a certain feel and connection that you can get to the strings that probably you don't get with the pick. There's such a warmer sound.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it just kind of feels a little bit more natural to be able to play at least a cigar box. But if I'm playing a 6-string, also I find, oh God, I can also play without a pick there as well, and I'll do that sometimes.
Right. Well, what our audience doesn't know that I happen to know is you've done these 250 builds or so, and not all of them are just for an average paying customer. You've built some for some people who, I think, one in particular recently that's not so average.
Well, yeah. So,
tell us about that.
Yeah. So about a little more than a year ago, I was approached to do a cigar box guitar for a Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong. And the way that came about is that my wife came up to me, hey, because actually, let me backtrack. About 5 years ago, my wife asked me if I could do a cigar box guitar for a business acquaintance of hers. I said, sure, no problem, because it'd be a gift. And I guess you go forward back a couple of years ago. There were his group was honoring Cheech, and they wanted to present him with a gift. So he kind of remembered me. Said, hey, maybe. And she asked me, "Do you think he would make a guitar for Cheech?" So she comes to me and with this idea, and at this point it was like maybe a month and a half away from the date, and all of a sudden I'm freaking out, man. That's not enough time.
Not for a detail guy.
I'm freaking out. And initially I was gonna say no, and my wife was kind of very persistent. Oh, come on. So okay, I relented, and I put all my effort into this to have this thing ready for that event. And initially, it was just going to be a situation where it was going to be presented to him, as a gift. But then they come, hey, would you like to present it to him yourself? I said, oh, okay. I get to meet him. That's nice. Then all of a sudden, that evolved to, hey, would you like to have lunch with him? And then at the lunch, you could present it to him. Now, oh my God! So I got a chance to actually sit with him for about half an hour and talk and chat. And when he had no idea what that this was going to be presented to him. Oh, sorry about that. I gave him the box, and he opens it up, and all of a sudden his eyes light up because he sees it's a musical instrument. So Cheech, aside from being a comedian and making movies, uh, the guy is really deep into the arts and music. He's a huge art collector. And in fact, over in Riverside, there's a museum that opened up a couple of years ago called the Cheech, and it houses a lot of contemporary art. And a good part of his collection is in there because he just really loves the arts. But the guy's also a musician at heart, and he was telling me that I don't travel anywhere with either a ukulele or a guitar. Because I can't tell you how many ukuleles I've lost. But so when he opens up this box and he sees this guitar, his eyes kind of light up, and he pulls it out, and he's going up and down the neck, checking the intonation. Oh God, good, because I spent a lot of time making sure that was that was great.
Right.
And so I guess that the time came where they were asking him to come over for a photo out there, and so he stands up and he's bringing a guitar with him because he didn't want to leave it there. And I guess his handlers are telling him, no, let's take the picture without the guitar. And he's kind of concerned, and he turns to someone, hey, make sure I don't leave this place without this guitar. Okay. Then all of a sudden, a few minutes later, I hear him repeat the same thing to someone, hey, please make sure I don't leave this place without this guitar. So I was thrilled because obviously it meant something to him, and so I was just over the moon. So I saw them box up the box again, and they made sure that he had it.
That's a great story. I love that. So your hobby, your addiction, your passion is in the hands of Cheech Marin.
Yeah,
or Cheech Marin.
He mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean,
I never would have believed that. Being a kid watching a Cheech and Chong to say, "Oh, one day you're gonna make a guitar for him."
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic story, and I think before we wrap up, Roberto, I'd be interested in knowing for our listeners and our viewers what your advice would be to anyone getting into building who's an existing guitar player.
And I think if you're a guitar player, it's kind of pretty easy to fall into this because obviously we love guitars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you find out that you can make one yourself, I think it just kind of changes everything. I've got to the point where I'm not just making cigar, but I've made 6-string ones, and then obviously there's the ukuleles and the basses. So you just start getting to all kinds of stringed instruments. So. But I think they say that there's no rules to making these things, and for the most part there is. But if you want a guitar that's going to really play well, there's a few rules you do got to follow, especially when it comes to intonation. But just do it to please yourself, and don't worry about trying to please someone else, because if you build it for yourself, I think you'll find that there's going to be a lot of people that think the same way and will like it as well.
Right. Well, that's great advice. I think you just gotta dive right in sometimes.
Oh yeah.
It's like anything else.
Yeah.
You're walking down the street thinking you just had your great coffee and pastry, and and now you're at a museum where your artwork is on display for everybody to see.
Well, yeah, it's the third museum opportunity I've had. And I've got an opportunity to meet a lot of great people, make a lot of new friends, like yourself.
Yeah.
And it just keeps it's a community that keeps growing, and it's taking me places I never would have imagined I would go, and meet people that I wouldn't have thought. So it's a road that just takes you in unexpected places, but it's an enjoyable one.
Well, I think that's great, and I couldn't agree more. But I appreciate your time, Roberto. I know that you're gonna hang out a little while, and I don't know when you fly back, but hopefully you'll have a safe trip back home. And
thank you.
We'll have, like me, some fond memories of our time together. So with that, I'll close the episode, and as I normally do, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Suitcase Sessions podcast. And remember, as Roberto said, there are no rules. Just keep playing, and we'll catch up later somewhere down the road.
All right. Thank you, Bob.